Thank you very much. Last round of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, you go ahead, sir.
There are a couple of municipalities in South Africa where independents have been elected using the nominated candidate. Been interesting. You could argue this is just how factions have got their own back. Or you could argue that this is an alternative that's genuinely been presented. Let's try and get to grips with what the issues are at municipal level and how maybe the sort of instruments that are available might work.
And I saw democracy and I was like, yo, you know, and I think politics, I'm like, yo, everywhere, you know. And I'm saying here, I'd like to believe I'm representing younger people, you know, because every time I see democracy, every time I see politics, I get scared, you know. Because more than anything, all I think about is the ego more than anything else. You know, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, okay, we are talking about my tomorrow, which is everybody else's tomorrow, right? And yet I'm thinking, we are human beings, we have emotions, you know. Before I go and stand in that box and cross an X, do you care what happened to me yesterday? You know, is it what it's about, or is it about you, as whoever you are, the president or whoever, the mayor?
I'm of the feeling that people in political office are able to hide behind the party because of proportional representation, and the time where we needed proportional representation for stability has gone. So I'd be keen to try and understand that, because citing a few examples of corrupt politicians in Brazil doesn't, for me, suggest that proportional representation is still needed in any way.
The first questioner in this sequence got to the issue that I was most interested in, which is the municipals. I just wondered, for Democracy Works, whether or not, if you aren't having already identified a few good examples around the country that you could learn from and to showcase. South Africans love to give prizes, but to give some visibility to those local leaders who are showing ingenuity and toughness and able to deliver services in some clever way that would at least teach others.
Yeah. I know Salga already has awards for the top 5 municipalities. I think it's annually. And it's quite sad because there's so few. We have I think 278, if I'm not mistaken, municipalities roundabout, because they adjusted and all of that. But the top performing municipalities were only 5, and I got an opportunity to visit one in Mpumalanga. They have no potholes. They have I think 90% collection rates of rates and taxes. They are able to deliver water and electricity regularly with no interruptions.
I think there's a good point to be made, and we've made it already, that there are economic systems that constrain action, and those need to be changed. But in terms of what we can do now, how we can use the levers that are at our disposal now, I think I ought to probably sing for my supper a little bit and tell you a little bit about my day job. I'm an advocate, and I spend a lot of time suing municipalities for failure to implement constitutional rights and for violation of constitutional rights. And the socio-economic rights promises in our constitution are very often local government mandates. They're mandates that have to be delivered by the local state. And there's been an enormous amount of success, actually, in using constitutional and legal guarantees to deliver concrete benefits for ordinary people. You'll remember a couple of years ago, 8,000 informal traders were evicted from the inner city streets for a month. My organisation acted for one of the major informal trader unions, brought an urgent application. We ended up in the Constitutional Court, and just in time for Christmas, the Constitutional Court ordered that all the traders be allowed to return to their stalls. There's been a lot of work on ensuring that people who are evicted from their homes are given alternative accommodation by the state if their eviction would lead to homelessness. Expanding the role of local government in the provision of basic services and emergency housing. So there's a lot of litigation going on. Even all of that is poor people's movements, social movements, bringing that litigation. But there's been a great deal of middle-class legal activism in relation to the municipalities as well, and it's borne real fruit. I mean, the billing crisis that many of us remember 2 or 3 years ago, there was a fairly, it's not very well known piece of litigation where a group of property owners and managers took the municipality to court and essentially got an order in relation to their properties that said, until you can guarantee me that my bill is accurate, you may not collect rates, taxes, or services from me. And then very quickly after that, the billing crisis seemed to subside. I don't think there's an exact cause-effect relationship, but it certainly contributed towards it. So I'd say the biggest lever we have at our disposal as people, other than voting and protesting, is the Constitution and the ability to engage constitutional rights, to use constitutional language, to compel municipalities to do a better job for us. My particular professional interest is making sure that they do a better job for the poor and excluded.
There are things changing and changing for the better. But I feel that there's a lot of us who are much more comfortable complaining about an image in our heads and not necessarily engaging on it. The truth about, what the young lady at the back is saying is, she's saying, I don't really care for the politics, but I want the politics to serve me, but it's a bit too complex and too complicated to get involved. And I think at this stage in our history, that isn't the right attitude or approach. The stage we are in terms of dealing just with the past of South Africa, but also dealing with the macroeconomics and the macro politics, is one where the South African society has to be deeply engaged with the politics, and beyond the complaints about certain figures. They have to be deeply engaged in what are all the policies coming out, who's doing what, where, how, and how do we hold them accountable? What are the methodologies, as Stuart was talking about, court, of holding people accountable? And until we accept that responsibility of actually being ourselves, being accountable and engaged, I think it's going to be very difficult to, try and point the finger and then wait every 5 years for a new election cycle, complain a bit, which shouldn't be our lot. So I think in my parting shot is that in the end, it really isn't up to the politicians. It really is about us to, leave this space and be more engaged, be more galvanized and mobilize more for the changes that we want to see. Thank you.
I just want to summarize by saying that we spoke a lot about inequality, but we didn't actually touch on inequality between municipalities, the different metros versus a municipality in a rural area, peri-urban area, etc., 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 etc. We sit here in Johannesburg, some of us live in Pretoria, and we enjoy some benefits that people in rural areas and in townships don't, for instance. So there are lots of nuances that we were not able to delve into in this conversation, obviously because of the nature of the setup. And I think those are the things that then speak to the question about the media and the way the media approaches reporting on municipalities. Are we actually interested in the specifics and the particularities? And having worked for a newspaper and a media house, I can tell you now, unless it's going to make a front page or make for an interesting, sensational read, a lot of the time we're not interested in the specifics and the particularities that would change the lives of the people that need the change. And when we talk about socio-economic transformation, a lot of the time it would benefit the poor, it would benefit the marginalized, and those are the people who don't have the voice. We sit here today, we've got the voice, and we don't even participate. Remember the survey I did at the beginning? We actually have the knowledge, we actually have the means, but we don't actually see the need to participate. Because a lot of us have privatized our services. So we don't see the need to relate to the state. So those are some of the nuances and some of the issues that we really need to think about. And in our own circles, as we walk out of this place, let's not plug out, as one of the panelists said. Let's find ways of seeing how we can find a convergence between our interests as middle classes and upper middle classes with the interests of the poor, because ultimately our destinies are intertwined. Thank you.
Just to thank the panelists again, and thanks the chair also. And do stay engaged. And I think that's most probably the moment in our society and also the moment in our world now is that we have to engage. I mean, if we privatize politics now at this moment, what we will get and the leaders we will get, whether it's the local level, the national level, even global level, they are there. We're getting there because we privatize them. I mean, we distance ourselves from actually active engagement. Stay safe and stay engaged.